On this channel, we talk about how to self-heal and self-develop, to live more optimally, to live more on purpose, to live more as your authentic self while you're doing the things that you love. Sometimes we can feel like, oh, if I'm doing all these things or I'm following these intentions or goals, then I should be a different person. That's not the point whatsoever. We want to move forward in the areas of our lives that are important to us as our authentic self, not as anyone else, right? And we do this both to create deeper intimacy with our relationship with ourselves, but also with other people, all our loved ones, the people that are important to us, the people that influence or that we influence and that are in our community. We do this work not only for them or for us, but for them as well, right? And earlier this week, I talked about shadow work and what shadow work is and how to get started doing it. And in this video, I felt really deeply called to go over 10 things that we should know as we get started. Like 10 things that are really important to know as like a preparatory thing before we get started on doing shadow work. Essentially, things that I wish I knew before I delved headfirst into this like 4 years ago. And even though I had like this long background of personal development and working as a fitness trainer, and this is stuff, like I said, I wish I knew back then, and what I teach and what I assess in my one-to-one clients now. So just to recap what shadow work is. Shadow work is the process of looking at the aspects of ourselves that we might have denied, repressed, or parts of our unconscious mind that we're not really aware are there, but might be causing kind of annoying thoughts, emotions, and behaviors that we don't really like and that can kind of prevent us from moving forward in the way that we want to move forward. It can either kind of block us completely, or it might keep us moving very, very slowly. And this can look like things like procrastination. It can look like self-doubt. It can look like self-criticism, perfectionism, people-pleasing. It can look like avoidance, like not doing the thing that we know we need to do. Or it can be the fear of judgment of other people. It can even look like narcissism, like the us not being aware of our own narcissism. Maybe we're projecting it outward on other people. Or it can be the opposite of that, where we're feeling worthless and not good enough, and we're feeling less than, and we're comparing ourselves maybe to other people. There's so many different ways that our shadow selves, our inner parts that might have been rejected or repressed at some point, like we push them out of our conscious awareness, probably because they experienced something hurtful or something shameful, and we just kind of like pushed it aside, and then we don't want to look at it. The problem is those things don't go away. And that's why shadow work is so important. When we understand where these different parts of us come from, why they're there, maybe what their needs or their motivations are, maybe understanding that our procrastination is there, it's showing up because it's scared of what might happen if we follow through on the thing that we want to follow through at. Maybe it's scared of success in some way, and therefore it's putting on the brakes somehow. It's not allowing us to move forward. And when we can understand that, and we can have compassion for that, and be like, okay, I see you. I know what you're doing. I understand that you have this need to put the brakes off because you're scared of what might happen in the future. Let me help you out. Let me be the parent for you or the coach for you that you might need so that we feel safe. Our entire self, our whole self, all parts of me can feel safe to move forward. And this is something I always say to my clients and all the work that I do. All parts of you are welcome. All parts of you on board. We need all parts of you in order to move forward, right? This is the work. So I want to speak into 10 different things that we need to be prepared for as we're moving into shadow work. And things, like I said, things I wish I knew, because I had an experience of going into shadow work without knowing the things that I'm listing, a lot of them at least. And I kind of would find myself even more stuck sometimes. I'd find myself being like in depressive periods. I'd find myself getting kind of like really deep down into the darkness without really having tools or an awareness of like what was going on or how to get out of it. And I wanted to share with you, like as a kind of a preparatory thing, like when we're getting into any type of fitness program or we're starting a strength training routine, we need to warm up. We need to warm up, and we need to know what is expected. We need to know what to expect. We need to know technique. We need to warm up, have like mobility, all these types of preparatory things in order to get our bodies ready to lift heavier weights over time, right? Or run faster or longer. Yeah. So the first thing I want to go over, number one, is self-readiness. And what I mean by that, why we should consider that, is because when we feel we know what's ahead of us, we know that when we start doing shadow work, we're going to start uncovering things. We're going to start looking underneath the hood of our car to improve, or like to look at what the malfunction is or whatever, and we're going to fix it. When we do that, it takes work. It takes work, and it's emotionally intense. It can be emotionally intense. And especially for those of us who haven't grown up being aware of our emotions, it can feel very intense because we might contact grief, we might contact anger. And if we, for example, pushed aside anger, or we've, at some point in time, we decided that anger was unsafe to show and to feel, it's wrong to be angry, all of a sudden we're met with anger that we've pushed aside, and we're like, I don't know what to do with this. Like, I shouldn't feel this, and it's intense, and it's a lot of it, and I don't know how to work with this, right? So it's just like being aware of like creating a capacity in a sense, or like increasing our awareness around our bodies to feel our emotions, knowing that we might feel some discomfort as we go into this, and knowing also being aware of like, okay, I know that I've had perhaps a more traumatic past, and I had experienced difficult things growing up, like maybe consecutively, like over time. And knowing that if we have that and we've maybe experienced mental health issues as a result, that this can be heavy work. And that brings me to my next point, to have a community or a sense of emotional support as we move into this work. And that can look like having a friend. It can look like having a family member that we trust. It can look like having a coach or a trained therapist that knows this work, that understands the nervous system, that is trauma informed, so that we can continue doing this work in a way where we feel supported. This is why in the work that I do with my clients, it's so important for me as a coach to create space in between sessions where I'm available for support. So I'm available via text messages and through voice notes. So because I know the integration process in between sessions, it can often, like, emotions come up in between. And it's important for me to know that my clients are supported through that process, so they don't feel alone and whatever might come up. And this is, again, like, have a friend, have a support system, have a community that you can talk about these things with, right? So that's number two. Number three is to have compassion. Self-compassion and acceptance is the most important thing. Like, it's one of the most important things. It is the most important thing. It's both. Because having self-compassion for ourselves as these kind of unsavory aspects of ourselves show up, as shame shows up, right? Compassion for the shame. Can I create a sense of awareness in myself, a higher sense of awareness of when shame shows up, when embarrassment shows up, when fear shows up in my body and it feels intense? I have compassion for it. Or I practice keep coming back to that compassion. I might feel the shame that comes up. The person or the younger aspect of myself that experienced something shameful, that aspect of myself is showing up in my awareness in my body, and I'm meeting it with compassion. Sometimes that means that we go into the shame and it feels really intense and then we get lost in it, but then come back out and be like, I'm connected to compassion here. I understand this is a part of me. Even find a sense of compassion or safety in your environment. As something comes up, you know that you have access to compassion within yourself and safety in your environment. Yeah. So be connected to your senses. Learn how to connect to your senses and your sense of safety, and find the places of safety that will make it easier for any part of you that shows up to connect to. This is something in somatic experiencing we learn, which is a form of trauma therapy, where we learn that we, yes, meet the trauma and the hurt and the difficulty and the intense emotions that show up and digest, and we're connected to our environment. We're connected to places of safety, even within our bodies. Like, can I feel a sense of groundedness in my feet as this thing is coming up or this anxiety is coming up, right? Have a connected sense to our environment and to our own self-compassion through this process. Number 4 is patience. It's understanding that shadow work takes time. It's a lifestyle, just like a health and fitness routine is a lifestyle. So is shadow work. It's constant self-awareness. It's constant compassion for ourselves, and all the different things that we might have not been aware of before give them space to come up, and knowing that takes time. Our minds will so often be 30 kilometers ahead, like so much faster than what our body's timing is. Our minds are way quicker, our executive functioning is way quicker than what our bodies are. And that deserves a lot of honor and awareness in knowing that the emotional things that might come up, they might need a day to digest, to process. This aspect of myself, like the root of why I procrastinate, needs time to digest, because I felt fear, and that was fear that I had experienced at some other point in my life, and that was really tough because I felt really alone in that fear, and no parent or caregiver was there to kind of help me through it. I didn't have a support system back then, so I'm holding on to a lot of fear that's coming up, and I'm allowing myself to sit with it, and that takes time, right? There is actually a lot of research coming out that feeling an emotion fully in our body takes about 90 seconds to process. If we're with that emotion fully and feel it, it takes about 90 seconds for it to process and to go over. In my experience, sometimes it takes longer, depending on how much my mind kind of goes back into the story of what happened. But the more I can come back into my body and just feel the emotions that are coming up versus staying kind of stuck in the loops of the story, also listening to them and paying attention to them, the more I can feel, the more the emotional core of where the stories and where the behaviors come from can digest. And that takes patience and that takes time. And I know for myself, this is a continuing practice for me. I keep meeting fears. I keep meeting things that come up in me that kind of, that are shadowy. And that's okay. That's okay. That's again, you build a certain sense of resiliency, emotional resiliency, capacity in your nervous system. You learned that you are safe, and you have the capacity to meet these things. And you learn strength. Like, you learn to trust yourself. You learn to trust that you are the inner parent that you need. You are the inner coach that you need. That you have so many more resources inside of yourself than what you might have previously thought or realized. And that comes through practice, and that comes through patience. Yeah. Again, it comes back to strength training and fitness training and stuff like that. You don't get strong and build muscle one time or from one workout. Nope. You commit to doing a certain form of movement or exercise that you enjoy doing or that you do over time, and it becomes easier over time, and you commit to doing it for the long term. You're not doing this just for the quick fix. You're doing this for your old self, your 80, 90-year-old self who wants to be able to get up off the ground and move around and play with the grandkids until old age. That's why you do fitness, or you commit to doing fitness over time, right? And this is the same thing with shadow work too. So it's just constant awareness of self. And it's after a period of time, it just gets way easier. It gets way lighter. You start having a sense of humor around it even. Like as you've moved through maybe darker aspects of things, you start kind of seeing yourself as this like child of the universe that's innocent. At your core, you're just innocent. These are parts of yourself that come from your childhood and from your parents, like even ancestral stuff that come like conditioning from your family. And it's just, you just have so much compassion and being like, this is just innocent stuff that's coming up and it doesn't need judgment. And that brings me to my next point. I think we're at 5 or 6. We're gonna say 6. Acceptance, like judgment, self-judgment as these things, like be prepared not to judge yourself, or be prepared to notice judgment coming up and to remember to self-accept. Yes, there's a very, very unsavory part of me that's going up right now, the narcissistic, full of herself. I think I'm the best in the entire world. I'm, better than everyone else. Everyone needs to serve me. That's a part that everyone has, in my opinion. I certainly have. And that's a part of me that also deserved acceptance, even though it was really, really intense to look at and be like, holy crap, seeing all the places where that's shown up. And when that part of me, though, is accepted and integrated, it just becomes a natural part of myself. I don't think I'm higher than anyone else. I don't think I'm lesser than anyone else. And it's just, it's a form of healthy narcissism versus a very toxic, like, I'm always better than everyone, and everyone needs, whatever that looks like, right? So that's the thing, like acceptance over self-judgment. And that is kind of what Carl Jung also says. You have to learn to accept yourself, or change can only happen through self-acceptance, not through judgment. It just doesn't work that way. When we feel judged or rejected, those aspects of ourselves are not going to change. They're just not. No. Have you ever tried changing someone by judging them? They might be scared and like kind of listen to you in the beginning, but then they get really resentful over time for being judged. Every part of us just wants love, just wants acceptance. So number 7 is to stay connected to your purpose. Stay connected to your North Star. Stay connected to the reason why you're doing this work in the first place. A shadow pattern I often see people get into is they will start digging for shadows all over the place. They'll start digging for, okay, if I'm finding out that I'm procrastinating here, I'm a perfectionist here, or it's, fear of success here, then I have to start digging in all the other areas of my life where this is also coming up. And yes, that is purposeful in a lot of ways, where we'll find one pattern we'll often find in other areas of our life. If I find procrastination and avoidance in one part of my life, I'll find it in another part. I'll find it in my relationships. I'll find it around money. I'll find it around health and fitness, right? But if I'm constantly digging for more, constantly self-assessing, constantly looking at myself and trying to figure myself out, digging, that's not purposeful. Stick to your plan, stick to your goals, stick to your intentions. If you're working on relationships, stick to that to the best of your abilities, or business, and like just keep coming back to your sense of purpose and your North Star and your why for doing this work. Don't get so distracted by all the different ways, all the different shadows that you can find in yourself. Just stick to a plan, stick to a North Star, a path. All the shadows that you need to find are going to show up on that path, right? So That's it. Stick to your North plane and define that. And that's something that I do with my clients as well too. It's just like we find our North Star. Where are we moving toward? What is our purpose here in life? What's our mission? How can we stick to that and hold to that so we can keep moving forward, knowing that everything that is meant to show up on that path will, and we'll meet it then. Yeah. And number 8 is to have a sense of trust in the universe. Very often we'll find that our ego and our mind is like, I have to control everything. I have to control, this needs to look a certain way. I can't let go of control. But like trust and surrender. Trust and surrender that there's something greater than yourself. I know that not everyone is spiritual, but spirituality is one of the, or like not even necessarily spirituality, but just understand that there is greater things going on. There's a higher intelligence that has your best interests at heart that you can lean back on and you can surrender to. If you're finding yourself, your mind needing to control the process, needing to, control and perfect, or needing your path to look a certain way, lean back and surrender. Lean back and surrender, knowing you're held, knowing that you are a child of the universe, and that something greater than you is holding you. You're not alone in this space, right? You're not alone. So trust in something greater than yourself and collaborate with that rather than your mind thinking you have to be in control of everything, right? So trust the universe, essentially, or whatever that means to you. So that was number 8. Number 9 is to understand that you are perfect the way you are, and don't try thinking that there's so many different things that you have to fix and that have to be changed within you, that you're actually doing shadow work from operating from a part of you that thinks that you need to be perfect and that there's something wrong with you and that you need fixing. Every single person on the planet has a shadow, and usually we have pretty similar shadows as well. And notice if the part of you that really wants to fix everything, find every single thing wrong and, digging, that might also be a shadow. And that might be a part of yourself that also needs love and compassion and being with it, versus then just kind of like going from a space of, I'm doing this improvement work and shadow work in order to fix myself. You are perfect the way you are. You don't have to change. You can be you're perfect when you don't do shadow work. Like you're great. You're fine. You'll be fine with or without it. You'll probably benefit from doing it and to meet yourself deeper. Your relationships will benefit from it. Your business will benefit from it. Your health and wellness will benefit from it. But you are still perfect. Have that as like your outline, as your background. You are perfect the way you are, right? And I think we're at 9 or 10. We're gonna see where this goes. This is what my shadow sometimes is, to over plan and to over complicate things. And with these videos, for example, that I make on YouTube, I try my best to flow with things and to just let my mind kind of work through it. And again, work with my own perfectionism when it comes to this stuff. So number 9 or 10 is to seek professional support on this journey. Seek a coach, seek a therapist, depending on if you've been through a lot of trauma in your past. And to also recognize yes, you can get really far on your own. I know I did, but it took a slower period of time to move through difficult things and heavy things. So again, you can do shadow work on your own. It's fine to do on your own, but just be aware, if you experience mental health issues, or you're struggling, or you have a big trauma history, seek professional support. Trauma-informed coaches and therapists that are nervous system and trauma informed. Highly, highly recommend. I did both the route of doing it independently by myself, but then also seeking out professional support from people who knew what they were talking about and how to guide me through these things. So that the 10th thing that I'm gonna say is create a sense of safety as you do this work, and safety and time, knowing that this, like I mentioned earlier, it's going to take time, and create a sense of safety as you do this. Do journaling exercises when you're out in nature, for example. Do feeling your emotions in a safe space, in a safe environment. If you're in an environment that is abusive, a relationship that's abusive, if you're in an environment that's not safe, if you're constantly dysregulated because of your financial situation, you have to, like you're kind of in survival, then I would probably recommend doing this at a place and time when you have more capacity to be with what comes up. We don't want to overstress your system here because it is going to cause some emotional intensity, some nervous system dysregulation most likely, and we need that stuff in order to give it space to digest and to process. But if we're doing that in addition to feeling really dysregulated in our life otherwise, that's not going to serve anyone, and it's not going to serve you. So know that you need some time. You maybe put some extra time to go like do a deeper dive of things. I work with people on 2 month and 2 month periods of time. I've worked with coaches that do a 4 month container where there was like this 4 months of like, okay, I'm doing this deeper work right now, and I'm taking the financial, I'm using it, or I'm taking the financial liberty to do it. I'm taking the time and space for me to go into this. So honor your time and your space, but also don't let that be a way for you to not do it, right? Like have an intention of, if you can't do it right now, have an intention of finding a time in your future or right now, or you can like increment it to do this work at a deeper capacity. So I hope that this was helpful in some way. I apologize for some cuts and this and there and, you know, lots of talking here. But I hope it was helpful in some way, and I hope it served you, because this stuff is so valuable and it's stuff that I really wish I knew. And I just wish you so well on your journey. If you need any additional support, if you're looking for a coach to help you fulfill the things that you want to fulfill and get clear on your goals and your purpose and what you're here to do, deepen your relationships with yourself and other people, I can be your girl. I can be your coach, and all the information that you might be looking for is down there in the comments. Thank you for being here. Subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you next time.